welcome to this episode of the Gunman. In this video I'll just be taking you through the prep work, and we'll also have a quick look at the colour matching on this Volvo S80. The colour code and the name is Hurricane Grey, and it was 472 for the colour code. I'm using it in Standox Solvent base code as well. So start off, what I'm doing there is just damp rag, just with a bit of water in it, and you squeeze most of it out, and then I'm using the water, and that's just going to get rid of any dirt and dust, and then I'll just dry that over with a clean dry rag. So a lot of people, when they prepare cars, they still do it wet, which I've found it's a lot messier, and you can do it that way. There's nothing wrong with it. I used to do it that way, but I think this is a lot quicker. I've sped it up a little bit just to stop the video from getting too long, but we'll do our best at trying to cover the best ways that I've found to prepare a car. So we put a nice amount of primer on that. There's a good heavy 4 coats over the filler repair, and then I'm using 180 grit to block it down with, so it's going to block in there nice, and it's going to get it nice and straight. So once I've finished blocking it, I'll then go around all these edges with an old piece of 180 or 240. I ended up using 240 on this one. Just it cuts through it a bit quicker than the 500 grit, which we'll end up going over the top of that with later on anyway. So now I'm using 320 grit here to get rid of those 180 grit scratches. 180 is way too coarse to paint over. 320 is actually still a little coarse to paint over too. So we'll then go over the top of this with some 600 later on. So yeah, there's nothing wrong. So one thing that I will say is that you see where I've actually finished sanding with this orbital sander. Some people used to just do that and then Scotch Brite the remaining panel. But what I've actually seen happen before is that you've sanded the orange peel flat on half of the door, and then the other half you've just Scotch Brited it with your wet Scotch Brite. And that's going to have the orange peel, so you can actually see that after you've painted. So I think it's quite important to flatten the whole panel back down to no orange peel, and then you can start again. So what I'm using here after I finish 320ing is just a piece of 500 with a softback sanding sponge. They're awesome things, these, and even if you're just doing some hobby jobs at home, I'd recommend getting a box of them. 800 is available too, which is good for denibbing if you've got some stuff in your base coat. So next up, I'm using just a bit of grey Scotch Brite, just going around all those hard to get edges, and I'll end up going over the top of that later on with one of those 800 softback sanding sponges. I swear by those things. They're great, and they make for a really good job too, because all those spots like inside the door handles, it actually allows you to take the orange peel back down to flatten them down a bit, so it does make for a better job. So once I've done that, I'll then go over the blend areas with a piece of 600 grit. You can replace that for 800. That's pretty much industry standard. Most people do use 800. But I've found that if you watch this, I can pretty much get a whole door sanded down with one piece of 600, whereas if you're using 800, sometimes you go through 3 or 4 pieces for one door. And I find this is just a bit more of a cost-effective way of doing it, because you're using half the amount. You can see down the bottom there it started clagging up a little bit. So, and then I'll go over and do the rear door, same thing, and then over the top of that, after I'll give it a good blow off, I'll also go over that 320 area that I did on this rear door here. I think it's pretty important to go over the primed area last. You notice how I did my blend, and then after that I went over the primed area. I've actually, when I started doing dry sanding, it's more when you're doing dry sanding, because if you're wet sanding, the water will pull all that dust out. But if you go and sand over the primed area, and then after that you go and sand over your blended area, you can end up with some of that primer dust staying inside the blended area panel, and you go and clear over it, and you're left with a bit of a milky haze underneath the clear. So something to be careful of. So now I'm going over with one of those 800 soft pads, so it also takes it from 600, which is what it was, down to the 800 grit, or up to the 800 grit, which is a little bit finer. It's not quite as coarse, so the colour will blend over that better too. So all up, to do this job as far as prep work, it probably only took me about 30 minutes, I think. I didn't actually look at the time, but I've sped it up a little bit, obviously for the video, to stop it from getting too long. And yeah, so if I was doing this wet rubbing, it probably would have taken 45 minutes to an hour, because you end up with like the water that gets all up inside all the door jambs and the molds, and you've got to blow them off for an extremely long amount of time. And even then, sometimes you go to mask it up and there's still bits of water dripping and all that, and then there's a mess on the floor that you've got to clean up. And I've just found that this is a lot cleaner, and I find it makes for a better job myself. So as I say, there's nothing right and wrong, it's whatever gets the result. So that's pretty much got that job prepped up. So next up we'll have a quick look at the colour. I'm using Standox with the Spectro photometer, so I'm giving it a good polish up, and then make sure I wipe that off real nice, wipe all that polish off, and then we'll get the Spectro, take a couple of photos of it, we'll plug it up to the machine, and it'll give us a bit of a comparison, result comparison, on what we've got and what it's got on its database, which you can see here. So the one on the left is what we've got on our car, and the one on the right is what they have. I'll just give you a quick look. That's the tinters that are in it. This is the colour name, Hurricane Grey 472. This is a tinting bank. So then go off that formula there. You then grab all of those tinters and put the corresponding amounts in. So then come out, once it's mixed up, we'll come out and we'll stir it up and then thin it down at approximately 2 to 1 ratio. I personally like to leave it a touch thicker, because it covers a little better. That's just the way I like to do it. And with the HVLP guns, you're not going to have any problems with it coming out of the gun. You can still get it out quite nice. So give it a good stir up. Make sure you get all the bits of metallic off the sides, else you can change the colour later on. I'm going to leave out the masking and the painting for this job. I'll make a separate video of that, but I've got the footage, so I'll be uploading that soon. And we'll grab our test card, come out to our spray out booth, whack it on and put a few coats on. Turned out this colour was pretty good, as you could even see from the result comparison. It wasn't too bad. If you were doing the whole side, you probably would have just about painted it, but it turned out that because we were only doing a couple of doors, I decided I wanted to make a slight adjustment to it. So I sometimes just blow a bit of air on there. I just thought I'd leave this in real time just so that you can see how long it takes for that solvent base to dry. It's quite quick. It's actually not even that warm over here at the moment. It's starting to cool down. Well, Perth standards of cold is 20 degrees, so so yeah, as we go, just blowing a bit of air on there, then we'll put our tech coat over the top. So you want to pretty much replicate what you're going to do when you're painting. There's no use in putting a real heavy coat on when you're doing your spray out card, and then going in and painting the car and doing a real nice tech coat, and then it ends up that the colour's wrong because you haven't actually replicated what you're doing when you're painting the car. So it turns out to me that this colour looks a little bit blue, and it looks a touch too light, and it's like the car itself is a little bit more yellow and red. You can still even see just from this footage here that it needs a bit of red and a bit of yellow in it. So I'm using the 3M Sun Gun, awesome tool. It's a colour corrective globe in it, so you've got to be careful when colour matching inside the workshops with the fluorescent lights. They don't give off a true reading with the colours inside them, so if you colour match them, probably put your car outside if you don't have a sun gun. So then come up and have a look at the list and what tinters are in it. 583 was the maroon, and I grabbed a little bit of 581 as well, which is the yellow, iron yellow. So we'll then come and put a bit of each of those in. That's a bit of the red, and then we'll put a bit of that yellow in too. And I like to just have a quick look just over the stick. This is because you might look at it, because you've got the original colour in your gun and then you've changed what's in the pot. And you can have a look over the stick and you can already see that that's turned a touch more yellow. You might have a look at that and say, oh yeah, it needs a touch more, and maybe it's gone a bit far, and then we'll check it anyway. But then we'll just give the gun a bit of a flush through. So you want to make sure that you've cleaned the previous colour out before you put the new one in. Give that a flush through, and then we'll put our new colour back in, and we'll do another spray out. When we do this next spray out, just careful that we make sure we cover off half of the card, or just a small part of the card, just so we can also have another comparison of what that colour's done. So it may turn out that that's turned it the wrong way, and you need to know which way it's turned it. So just another couple of tech coats over the top of that, because it's already covered, just so it's enough to change the colour. Dry that out. Then I just use the wax and grease remover in that bottle instead of clear coat. You can put a coat of clear over it if you like, but I was actually quite happy with how that came out after that small adjustment that we just did. So you can see it's that little bit redder, and it's that little bit yellower too. So it's a little bit, some lights it's hard to tell, that sun gun actually blinds you a little bit with the camera, but it looks good in real time when you're actually there. So we've got a quick clip of the car after it's painted here. At the end, we've also got a couple of links to a couple of my other vids, the Jet and the Volvo review and demonstration. So check them out if you haven't already. Check out my Facebook page. There's a link to that in the comments box down there. Comment, share it around. Yeah. Let us know what your thoughts are on the vids. So there's the car once it's all done. We ended up painting, it was the passenger side, so it was this side just here, these two doors. So quite happy with how that came up. So thanks again for watching. This has been another Gunman production. Goodbye.